Hello. Well, today I wanted to go over the Petito Laundrie lawsuit. It is sad to actually still be talking about this so many years after. Gabby Petito, his body was found. Brian Laundrie did actually write a letter of confession before killing himself, and his body was found. Well, now we still have a lot of discourse going on with the parents, and there's been several lawsuits. There was a civil lawsuit for wrongful death against Brian Laundrie's estate, which was settled for $3 million to the estate of Gabby Petito, which is managed by her mother, Nicole Smith. And the Gabby Petito Foundation has been set up uh, for domestic violence cases and assistance with legal and housing and to get people out. Um, that foundation was set up by her parents after. Well, the reason that this is still an active case is because of the sequence of events when she was missing. Um, the long and short of it in the news right now is that the family for Gabby Petito, her father, Joe Petito, and her mother, Nicole Smith, had filed against the Laundries, the parents of Brian, and have asked to have the attorney that they hired to help Brian and themselves, Stephen Bertolino, added to the case. They contend that they have suffered traumatic emotional distress, that the family was negligent, that they knew Gabby was gone and they did not say anything, and that the family still looked for her for weeks, but they knew she wouldn't be found alive. Now, it's hard to say exactly what the parents knew, but through text messages and discovery, and the third amended the complaint that the Laundries have filed, which adds Stephen Bortolino. He lost his fight not to be named, although he cannot be forced to testify what Brian told him. However, it's unclear whether he was the lawyer for the parents at the time. Now, there were depositions given. I've got access. I linked in the description below to all of the records to the court case, which you can check out the affidavits for yourself. But the video link that I listed is an account where they actually read the depositions of the parents that were just done the other day. And they're quite telling because there are some things that they admitted. They admitted that at the end of August, before Brian Laundrie came home. Now, some of you may be familiar with this case. It goes back a few years. I'm going to list an article down below that actually will give you a refresher timeline of everything that happened. Well, actually, he contacted his parents at the end of August, very late. They both admit to speaking with him. They both admit that he said the words, Gabby is gone. August 29th, August 30th. Gabby is gone, and that he said he needs a lawyer. Now, the Laundries are saying that they didn't know that Gabby was like really not going to be around. They're saying, well, we don't know exactly what he meant by that. Why would he need a lawyer? Hmm. Why would he need a lawyer? Well, they're saying they didn't suspect anything, but the Petitos rightfully counter with their attorney. Well, if you didn't know anything, why did you hire him a lawyer? Why did you that next day go over to your friend and neighbor, Stephen Bartolino, and hire him for Brian? And now you say that the reason you didn't say anything is because you were taking attorney's advice on not speaking on anything. Now, Brian, after that phone call, came home within a day or two in Gabby's van with all Gabby's things in it to the house that he lived with Gabby and his parents in, with no Gabby. And the parents, in their deposition, are saying they never thought to ask him what was going on. Well, they were taking the advice of the attorney not to ask him what was going on. Well, Brian did meet with the attorney. And at all this time, Gabby Petito's parents are trying to contact the Laundries to see if they have heard from Gabby, because the last message they had from Gabby was on August 30th. And it wasn't like her, what it said. And they were pretty concerned that she wasn't the one who sent it. It has been proven since then that Brian had her phone and made that text. It also was proven that he had her cash card in her possessions and that he used them after her demise, which were the charges that they were pressing against him when they went looking to the parents' house, the Laundrie's house, where he lived, where Gabby lived, on September 11th. Because the parents were now saying something's wrong. Gabby Petito's parents were saying she left with him. They're never separate. He's here. His family won't talk to us. Nobody will tell us anything. Why won't they tell us where Gabby is? Why won't he say anything? The problem was they wouldn't communicate with them at all. They reported her missing. The police are now involved. They go to the house. They find out when they reported her missing that her charges were used, etc., etc. They go to talk to Brian Laundrie about it at his home. The parents say he's not there. Apparently, he left. 2 days later, a couple of days later, actually, I think it was 4 or 5 days later, they do a statement through their attorney to say that Brian had left to go hiking. He had snuck out. The last time they saw him was on the 13th. But on the 11th, they said he was already gone. They said he wasn't there. And they say they saw him after, so they knew the police was looking for him. Now, here's the problem. Now, I'm a parent, so I can understand wanting to protect my child, get my child a lawyer if I think something's going on, if I think people are going to be looking at them. I might not necessarily think, of course, my child is a murderer. I might just think that because he came home without his girlfriend, who is now missing, that people might be looking at him. And of course, he would need a lawyer to protect him. But if you are innocent, then you come out, you tell people what's going on. No one said anything. And this is the problem that the Petitos have. Gabby Petito's parents say that they were caused unnecessary stress for weeks on end. These people knew she would not be found alive. They knew she was already gone. And in order to protect their child, they stayed numb. In other words, they interfered with an investigation of a missing person. They had information, at least where to look for her, and they didn't give it. And here's the lines. This is why it's interesting to me. Where is the lines on who should have said what? I mean, is it right to sue the attorney because he didn't say whatever Brian admitted to him? He can't. Under law, if he was hired by Brian Laundrie in regards to the missing case of Gabby Petito for any information or what may have done, and whatever he said to him falls under client privilege, attorney-client privilege. He could have told that attorney, I did it. And he still wouldn't be able to say. As long as he wasn't threatening any further crimes, he can't say. But did Stephen Bertolino cause undue stress when he knew Gabby was gone and he released a statement that says the Laundries and Brian hope that Gabby is found? Well, and listed statements saying that they hope it's successful and that their heart goes out to them. Uh, the Petitos are grieving, yes. Well, the attorney himself being named in his motion to actually motion to compel for summary judgment. The Laundries in Stephen Bartolino are actually saying that there's no case here, that the grief they were feeling and the suffering they had was prior to the statements that he made in September, you know? And I got to tell you, I don't know about that. Like they were issuing statements, they were, you know, reaching out. These families were close. Their children were dating for a long time. Hey George, how good to see you. Hey Christopher, it's not magic. I'm here every Tuesday night. Yes. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're finished. Yeah. And for those that I didn't say hi to, hello, Jean and Hi and Wrecker and Sean Coffee and Mousy and Liam and Rocket Couch. And I'm glad you're all here. I just started talking about the case and I didn't even say hi to everybody. I'm so sorry. Like, I am glad you're all here. And this case kind of gets to me because the lines are so blurred. So blurred. Where do we actually draw the line on accountability on when you're supposed to say something? I mean, a lawyer tells you don't say anything. Do you let the family suffer? You know, do you what do you do? How far do you go to protect your child? It's part of the suit. Okay. It's the one that's remaining. There is also a lawsuit. The Petitos have gone so far as to file charges against the Moab Police Department, the Sheriff's Department in Utah. And that is where the domestic violence call came in, you know, where they came to see the actually Moab, Utah Sheriff's Department were on scene with Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie in a quite distressed state. Pictures have been released with Gabby Petito showing that she had what looks like marks on her face that she had been struck. She was obviously very upset. The police report says that she was crying hysterically. She was unable to get a hold of herself. She was having what she called a mental health issues. Brian Laundrie was agitated, and yet they left the two of them together. They did not separate them. They did not bring them separately anywhere. Um they didn't arrest anybody, didn't bring anybody off scene. They figured everything was fine and they left. And within 2 days, Gabby Petito was dead. Now, they said mistakes were made even in protocol. The Moab Sheriff's Department, after investigation, has actually said that they didn't exactly follow certain protocol that should have been in a domestic violence issue, and hence the lawsuit. All of the lawsuits that are being filed are civil, and they are to gain accountability and actually some funding for the Gabby Petito Foundation. The family is not looking to make millions to make their lives better. They are trying to right a wrong in the system as to the statements that they have made. The money will go there. That suit is still in process. We do have the $3 million for the wrongful death because Brian did admit through a letter that he left when his body was found before he took his own life that he did do it. And so they settled that quickly with the estate. There was insurance and everything. The Laundrie family filed over that $3 million to that lawsuit, um, and they did the settlement. Uh, with everything going back and forth with the attorney Stephen Bertolino in the Laundries after the deposition, there is a little bit of hope that perhaps this can get settled for the families before going to trial. There is a trial on the books for May 13th, actually, same day as Sarah Boone's trial. Okay, and there is actually, though, before that, February 21st, just about a week in a day from now, there will be a mediation hearing. There's a mediator involved because the Laundries have offered a settlement to the Petito family to settle this lawsuit. not Stephen Bertolino, although he's named, but the Laundries themselves. Stephen Bertolino has been requested to turn over all insurance information involved that could actually settle for him also, and for the families. In on February 21st, they're supposed to meet. Now, in October, the Laundries had sent a settlement offer to the Petitos, which was flatly refused because a letter had been discovered amongst Brian's things from his mother. And, well, the letter, the Laundrie family, Denise Laundrie in particular, is it Christine or Denise? Christine says that the letter was written well before they left on the hike. And that's why it was probably with these things. But there's no date on it. And I'm going to, let me just remove this. Let me find you a picture of this so you can see what I'm talking about here. Okay. Just stop that one. Okay. She drew this bird, remember. She writes his full name, Brian Christopher Laundrie. It says burn after reading. Okay. And you may not be able to see like the little writing and all of that as I bring it up. But there is an article in regards to it, and I'm gonna link that one to you so that you could probably see it just a little bit better. You might be able to read it on your own laptops a little bit better. But the language in it has most of the problem. She says things like, you know, if you called me and you needed help with the body, I'd bring a shovel and garbage bags. It's basically a mother just saying to a son, no matter what, no one can separate us. I am going to love you no matter what. She uses quite a few examples. That one really bothered the family. The one about, and if you go to jail, I will bake you a cake and put a file in it. And if you end up on another planet, I will be here waiting for you for re-entry. Um, Basically, the wording seems kind of sketch. I understand the sentiment that, the mom to her son trying to say, like, we're all human, we all make mistakes. I'm going to love you no matter what. You can talk to me. Nobody's going to separate us. Nothing's going to make me turn away from you. What is the language of it? And it's the fact that they found it with the ledger, with the confessional letter that he wrote in his things. Um, she's saying she's glad that he saved it and he didn't burn it, you know, that it was a joke. The burn after reading, she said in her deposition. When I say she, I mean Christine Laundrie, his mother, Brian Laundrie's mother, says that she used that language, burn after reading, because of something Gabby was doing. Burn after writing was a book that she was interested in. And it was like a joke. But the whole language of this doesn't sound like a joke. It sounded like someone just trying to reassure someone going through a really hard time that they could still count on them, you know? And I'm wondering what was going on with their relationship. She says well before he left to go on this trip with Gabby, why would she have to write such a letter to him when he's going on this trip? When all accounts says that everything was fine. She doesn't admit to having any relationship problem with her son prior. And so the Petitos counter to say they don't think so. They think this letter was written after she found out. After she found out that he got this letter from her after the phone call he made. They said, Gabby is gone and I need a lawyer. And that this letter was written after that, sometime when he either before he got to the house or after he got to the house, and was by accounts reasonably they were informed of everything that was going on. The Petito lawsuit basically claims that it's unreasonable to think that if he told them Gabby is gone and I need a lawyer, that when he came home, he didn't tell them why. Now, they did have phone conversations and they did sit and they did talk and they admit to all of that. But when you hear the depositions and you read the depositions, they're acting like they just ignored all of that. He came home in the van without Gabby. All her things were in the van. But they say they didn't notice. They didn't notice that Gabby like wasn't around, and they just thought, he said, "Oh, she's at the hotel working on something." And they said, "Well, why did she go to a hotel?" Because she used to stay with them right there in the house. He said, "Oh, but she was afraid." But they don't elaborate. I understand why the Petitos want to go forward with this lawsuit. It's heartbreaking, you know? It is heartbreaking. But where's the legal precedent? Like, this my thing here is that I see the emotional side of all of it. And I think I just said this the other day about another case. I think it was Crumbley, Jennifer Crumbley. If it got to trial, the jury, everybody involved, all they wanted was accountability. And the more you fought against the true facts of the case, to say you had no you were not a contributing factor to anything that happened at all. you know and I understand why the Laundries don't want to say that they had anything to do with Gabby's death, because they didn't. But did they contribute to the parents' suffering in their actions? That's what the parents are saying. We all used to talk, and the day you spoke to your son, you refused to talk to us after that. You knew our daughter was missing. You knew something was wrong, and you let us spin in the dark. You let us spin our wheels for 2 weeks and suffer. And we reached out to you repeatedly, and the police reached out to you, and you wouldn't comment on anything, and you knew. But is that knowledge illegal? I think not, because no criminal charges, and I have to say this strongly, no criminal charges have been filed against the Laundries at all. And no criminal charges will be filed against Stephen Bertolino, the lawyer, because he didn't do anything criminal in not saying what his client told him. He can't be held accountable for that. He can for speaking for the family, because there doesn't seem to be a clear contract to where he was representing the family also. Because in the deposition, when Mr. Laundrie was asked, "Why did you pay Stephen Bartolino $25,000? Was that the retainer?" He said, "I believe that was for the Wyoming lawyer." Because here's the other thing. If they didn't know, they gave the money to the attorney. The attorney then hired a Wyoming attorney to where the body was found, knowing the charges were going to be placed from there. It stands to reason that Brian did tell his attorney everything. But the problem arises in, did they also speak with the family? Did he also tell the family? And were they protected? It was Stephen Bartolino as the attorney protected because the family were also the attorneys. Was there a clear agreement that all three were covered? Because when asked during the deposition, Mr. Laundrie couldn't say what he signed with the attorney, whether Stephen Bartolino was his attorney at that time also, or his wife's. That they did work on other things together, like property deals and such other things. But he wasn't sure what he signed. He always just trusted Stephen Bartolino, and he signed it, and he paid what he paid, and he doesn't understand, like, who's attorney for whom. They just talk to him as if he was their attorney. So it gets to be a problem. It does get to be a problem. You can see why it's the sadness is hard for me to deal with in the suffering of the parents on both sides. Because again, um both of those children are gone, you know? Like, nobody is comes out ahead no matter how this lawsuit gets settled, this civil lawsuit. I would like to see in February 21st, if they do come up to a mediation, But unless they're honest about the letter, or unless there's some accountability, to the family, better than those depositions they gave where they're just claiming like they didn't ask no questions, they don't know anything, they were quite defensive. Um, and I guess, they feel put out also, the Laundries, because like they've lost their son too. They are suffering. Their son did something terrible and he suffered, and he's not here either. And the family is suffering for that, knowing that he did it, knowing that he couldn't, that he took his own life. He won't have a future either. And so I'm sure that they also feel like they're suffering and they've suffered enough and they shouldn't have to go through more. But the settlement of the wrongful death immediately shows that they did actually take some accountability for what their son did. They know that that was the right thing. So I'm just hoping that during mediation on February 21st, that the conversation does go a little more kinder than these legal proceedings can. That there is some accountability and a negotiation. And a lot of it's going to go around that letter in an apology from one mother to another. Like, were you actually going to protect him against anything and never tell us what happened to our daughter? Like, be honest. Tell us the truth. I mean, the instinct is there to protect your child no matter what, right? Like, I get that. And when you're going to let another mother suffer that way forever, they didn't know the body would be found. And it wasn't any information that they give that helped it be found. They did not contribute to the investigation or the search for Gabby Petito. And the Petito family finds that incredibly offensive, and hence the lawsuit. So, on that, let me see what you guys got going on here in the questions. Let's see. Okay. YouTubers are the worst. Okay. It is sad ass case and was exploited by certain YouTubers for clout, and that didn't help at all. It made me so angry and I felt bad for those parents. There was nothing but ruined and lost lives. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, I did. Um, I hear you, Mousy. So what happened back then was absolutely horrible all over YouTube. Always been very cautious of it. The only reason I am still covering it is to try to find out where this actual line, as you can see, on accountability between the two parents. It's just tragic to me. Lots of mistakes and it's horrible. Yeah, if you're talking about the domestic situation that happened in Utah, yeah, that's going to be an ongoing case there. I do believe that there'll be some type of insurance settlement since the department has already listed that there were mistakes made on protocol in regards to those type of situations. And so that's all that's really needed to prove really the case. Um, I know not all. I just remember that one pretended to talk to Gabby's ghost, and that's just, oh gosh. Yes, I remember that. That's actually horrible when they did that and they went out and they put that out on YouTube before everything. It was horrible. That reminds me, I do have an update on Ashley Gilliard with the Schofield case. Ashley has answered um against summary judgment in why she thinks, and it's actually, I'm going to give her fair due. I'm going to set up a stream and we're going to go over her answer in all fairness to Ashley, in her response, and to see what her actual points of law could be in defense of this, because we've kind of been leaning the other way for Schofield, and I just think I want you to hear her words as to actually what it is that she says is her defense for what she did, because she's pushing hard that she hasn't done anything wrong, and there's no legal precedent for Schofield to actually go forward with this lawsuit on her. Okay. Well, anyway, we'll do that on another date. Let's finish with this. Yeah, and one said they got the police called because they were hiding Brian in the basement. Oh, let's not even talk about that one. Some people wilded out. It's different covering the case, but the showing up at people's homes, the misinformation, it was horrible. Yes, it was. Mousy, I agree with you. This is one of those cases that I only covered lightly. We did do a lot when it got into the civil lawsuits about that's when I started covering it more in regards to what the parents were claiming against the other parents and the hiding of information. And where is that? Is it criminal to not help an investigation? Now, the line is whether they hindered the investigation or not. If they could prove that they actively hid Brian and hindered his investigation into the missing person, that's different. But you got to remember, the parents didn't actually, they were looking for her, but they didn't file her missing with the police until like a week or so later. Like, they just kept trying to get information from the family and from Brian, figuring that, hey, Gabby's going to call us, or Brian's going to tell us where she is. Like, we'll get the information, right? You know, they were just as horrified to find out that he was there and not talking to anybody. Well, here's the thing, is it wrong? There was no investigation until she was missing, right? So they really didn't hinder anything by not talking prior to that. They can't really get him on that, but can they get him civilly for actually causing them undue stress? That's going to be the case. And whether or not this actually goes all the way to trial on May 13th. Um, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. All right. I'm not so sure it should. I actually think that they would probably do much better to settle. Don't you think? Um anyway, the Gabby Petito Foundation is set up because Joseph Petito and Nicole Schmidt want to turn the personal tragedy, the loss of Gabby, into something positive. And it was their hope that the foundation, the Gabby Petito Foundation, would bring important issues to the forefront of the public eye to benefit all our communities, especially in regards to police response to domestic violence issues, making sure that anyone feeling threatened in a relationship has a safe place to be immediately, helping with legal situations in regards to these types of cases. The foundation itself is going to go do a good thing and has a head start. And I'm sure that anything that is done from the Moab, Utah civil suit, or this civil suit, will be going forward to them. You know, the Moab City Sheriff's and Police Department in Utah, that wrongful death lawsuit is for $50 million. It's huge. Okay. And it accuses those officers of not properly handling a domestic incident between Petito and Laundrie when they were pulled over for a traffic stop, and they said that they could tell. Okay. There is actually images that were released of Gabby from prior. They'd show her in a very emotional state and show her a close up of her face, which actually does look like there are some marks on it. And that makes it even more like that wasn't known prior, or the actual physical state of her. In the actual police report, it was indicated that she was very shaken and she was upset, and that she admitted to not being in the best place mentally right now, and everything, and that she did uh, appear to be quite shaken. But they didn't talk about the bruising. They didn't talk about the mark, and it's going to come up in the court case also, I'm sure, in the civil case. I don't have a trial date for the Moab, Utah. I have to pull that one up, but I would suspect that it would be summer of this year. I'll have to go and double check on that one. I only have listed below, I only have this civil lawsuit for the Petitos versus Laundrie. And also, like I said, there's a reading of the depositions, which sometimes it's hard to read the depositions yourself, but they are available on the other link to the case that I put there. Um, but that, if you want to like just hear somebody read it, I will give you a warning though. They're kind of snarky, the readers. They kind of don't like the Landrys as parents at this point, and they just read them in very sarcastic voice. So take that as for a grain of salt. Like they do appear to be a bit biased, and I think it's only fair to say that out front, because I mean some people just are, just because they are the parents of um, the killer. No doubt about it. Hmm. I hear you, Mousy. Give the parents closure. Although this is how they're trying to get their closure. The Petitos are the ones filing the lawsuits. Okay, so they're looking for something in particular. They want answers. They want answers to what people knew and why, and they just want an apology, basically, and just for people not to do the, like, you can protect your child and still help others at the same time. But then again, I can't even imagine what I would do in a situation like this. So really I can't even wrap my head around what I would do, if it was my child uh doing something like this. Mm. The parents asking where their child is a sort of it is actually. How can you, as the these are parents that knew each other. Their children have been dating for quite some time. Gabby Petito lived with the Landrys and Brian. They saw them all the time. These families knew each other. They were in each other's lives. The Landrys say they liked Gabby very much, and she was lovely. They knew the parents. There's no reason not to speak with them, you know, especially if they were concerned. People can be in a relationship which they really should not be in, and either not recognize it as much or be in denial about how bad it is. Yes, this is true. Because a lot of the photos of Brian and Gabby are, they look like they're happier than ever. They had a lot of common interests. They enjoyed doing things together. They went off on their trip not with a troubled relationship in mind, but like that they were getting along just fine and they were going to travel with no worries together. I mean, I'm sure, things may have happened. Brian's story in his letter about how she died is awful. Um, in Brian states that he put her out of her misery after a terrible fall to which she was not going to survive. The domestic violence episode a couple of days before kind of sheds a different light on it. But this is what I challenge all of you. We don't know. The only one who can actually tell us is no longer here, Brian. And based on his letter, he may not have told the whole truth anyway. We don't know what he told his parents or his attorney. And when it comes to the attorney, we're not going to know. That's protected and clamped down. Will we know with the parents? Not based by their actions so far. They are not going to say what Brian said. They've already said about one thing that was discovered through text messages and they had to answer for. They are only answering for things that you can put in black and white under their nose or call them out on. They are not willingly giving any information, not even now. They wanted to settle once that letter was discovered that she wrote, that the Christine, I believe it's Christine Laundrie wrote, um, the mother, because it looks so bad. If a jury sees it, that could really look bad, you know, as far as indifference. But then again, can you be held civilly liable for being negligent and causing extreme mental health issues by just taking care of your child? instead of somebody else's by putting, your child's needs first. Like there's a line here that it's getting crazier in law lately. The Crumbly case. I know of another case where there was a teacher who went after a underage student into a sexual relationship, and the father aided and abetted this relationship in his own home. Should he also go to charges? Like there's a lot of these coming across my DMs lately and coming across my internet crawls, so to speak. A lot of like, what is the boundary with parents here? How much are they responsible for the actions of their child? Or how responsible are they for preventing their, protecting everybody from something that their child may or may not do? Where are the responsibility lines? In the law, it's shaky from state to state. Well, it looks like it's getting challenged more and more, as crazy as this world gets. On a more positive note, Restaurant at the End of the Universe is starting soon, isn't it? Yes, it is. And I just saw in the chat that Christopher said he's done his part and he's sending it in, and it will be out. It will be out by the end of the week. Couch, yes, it will. I can fully imagine, but that might later be considered as a confession. True. True. Hey, Shill. Thank you. I'm just saying, like, the other thing that I wanted to mention in regards to this lawsuit is with Stephen Bartolino. He's actually, since they wouldn't drop him from the case, they did their third amended filing of this civil lawsuit against the Petitos against the Laundries. Okay. They asked the court to add Stephen Bartolino about the statements that he made after they found out that he had hired the Wyoming lawyer immediately when they found through the text messages and everything that the Laundries had spoken with Brian, and then they went and spoke with Stephen Bartolino, and then he was hired immediately before Brian even came home. Okay, they were already talking supposedly about the case, about Brian needing a lawyer. Okay, and so once the timeline got that tight, weeks before Gabby was reported missing by the family, and the police were actually at their door. Uh, once these conversations were discovered back and forth in the things, Stephen Bartolino was added to the case. Now he cannot be forced to testify what Brian said to him. He cannot. He cannot, because no one else is in danger. There's no future crime to be committed. Okay. No, he cannot be forced. This is attorney-client privilege. Okay. I'm not so sure that applies to the parents. That's the fine line that they're trying to decide. However, Stephen's been very active in motions. Not only are they compelling for summary judgment to have this whole thing tossed, because they say there's not enough here. There's not enough here to prove what they knew, when they knew it, or that it caused any harm. Because the real harm to the Petitos was the fact that their daughter was missing and that they were grieving well before, and that any statement that Stephen Bartolino or the family made could not have aided or eased that pain. That pain was there first. And because of that, he is actually going to the court and filed a motion to remove the Petitos' expert witness on their mental health. Okay, they have an expert witness that was going to testify that not getting any answers from the people that knew their daughter, that were in a relationship with their daughter, that people were avoiding talking to them, what that actually could have done with them, to them psychologically and emotionally, and how much worse it made it for them. And they're trying to get all of that tossed out, Stephen Bartolino, is because he says that just because they said that they had, like, he had actually done the expert witness had actually done like a psychoanalyst on them, and had actually done an examination of types with both of the parents, and that he could testify about this. But Bartolino went over all of the records and said, no, you having a long phone call with them about it is not an examination. And he's trying to get everything thrown out, the deposition thrown out based on the expert witness's findings, based on that. So Stephen Bartolino is acting like a true lawyer in protecting himself in his case in this civil already. But we're going to wait and see. Hopefully, there will be a settlement. I'm not sure that that will or will not include Stephen Bartolino anyway, or how far the Petito family will wish to push. I do know that the Petito lawyer has already decided that they will not file motions to compel Stephen Bartolino to testify in regards to what Brian Laundrie told him. That they dropped that because they see the legal law there in regards to it. It's not a hill they're going to climb because it's too hard. Attorney-client privilege is sacred, and there's only several reasons that you can break it. And it's a future crime, harm to others, an ongoing crime. You know, these things, yes, you would have to report. Threat to anyone else, a harm to anyone else in regards, they would have to report. But otherwise, it's gonna hold. But anyway, we shall see towards the end of the month, another week. Um, and on that, I think I'm gonna wrap it up, guys, because it's a short one tonight. I just wanted to bring this one. Tomorrow I will be with Godless Gummer around 3 o'clock, and it's an early one. I think we're doing 3 o'clock because he said 8 o'clock UK, so that's 3 p.m. my time. We're gonna go over the Vince McMahon allegations in the long history of payoffs and hiding salacious stories that this man has. It's a juicy one. If you like wrestling, Jeff has a lot. Jeff is a big wrestling fan, which is why he wanted to join me with this one. So Godless Scummer and I will be here tomorrow. But on that, thank you everybody. Did not put the banner up. I've been a bad YouTuber. There we go. I guess I'll put it up for the you know I guess I'll put it up for the outro. Thank you, Liam. There was a lot of those reports. And there's a lot going on. And I know you guys some of you like to read the legal stuff, but I didn't want to bring those up here and just read, all the points, conditions and things like that. But to just summarize all the different angles of the civil suits, we are really hoping that the mediation actually goes forward. I think that if there's a good conversation between the parents, then perhaps there can be some peace and everybody can feel like they have some justice. In regards to the Moab, Utah one, there's a long process there. You know how, because, they're covered by insurance, and they're going to actually gonna fight that on whether they were doing their job. But since they already admitted they didn't follow protocol, I'm not so sure that they'll be protected. And this lawsuit is still active. There's no immunity being pushed forward. Stephen Bartolino, he's got immunity in regards to his statements with Brian. But we'll see where the judge lands on that. There's a nice judge. Got a lot of motions to look at for this one, and we'll be watching the court reports on that. So, all right. On that, we'll see you all. I'll see you all again tomorrow. Thank you to my moderators. Thank you to everybody in the chat for your questions and discussion. What was Aaron, what is that? Like, wait, I just caught that out of the corner of my eye. There's enough artificial intelligence out there narrating videos word for word. Yeah, there are, aren't they? Yes. I just saw one actually pull up like Courtney Clenny and then just read her like prison reports, and the mouth on her picture was moving. It was as if she was talking on it. It was like, whoa. It was kind of like, hey, someday. Thank you all. All right. You all have a great night. And I shall see some of you tomorrow afternoon. All right. Good night, all.